Chaos in Azeroth. Cities abandoned. Bodies litter the streets. Ladies and gentlemen, take your seats as I regale you about the legend of the Corrupted Blood Incident. Picture for a moment, it's September 13th, 2005, and you're playing World of Warcraft. The community is abuzz because the 1.7 patch is finally upon us, and it's a big one. This update adds, amongst other things, the capital city of Zul'Gurub. Hidden deep within the jungle of Stranglethorn, it's populated by the troll tribe of the Gurubashi. They worship the terrible blood god Hakar the Soulflayer, who also happens to be the final boss. This badass dragon motherfucker has a particularly nasty area of attack spell that deals 200 damage to the player every second, killing lower level players in minutes or less. The damage debuff is also applied to any player standing within a certain radius of the infected entity, which means that it spreads like a real pathogen. This debuff was known as Corrupted Blood. Now, there's something unique about this particular effect. Players can be accompanied by pets in-game, and although they can't take damage from it, it turns out those pets can still catch corrupted blood and spread it to other players, which means that they're effectively, say it with me, asymptomatic carriers. Now here's the other thing. If a player puts the pet back into their inventory, it still retains that debuff, so they could theoretically travel to a densely populated city, take out their pet who is, due to a programming oversight, still infected with corrupted blood. And then that pet could then spread it to all the people in the city. And so, everybody did that. Shh, shut up for a second. Listen to the ASMR. Nobody took it seriously. Plague continued to terrorize the world of Azeroth until Blizzard finally got wise and patched the bug on October 10th, nearly a month after it began. Even after this bug was eradicated, it still captured people's attention, specifically in the scientific community. Due to the game's focus on social interaction and the unplanned nature of the outbreak, epidemiologists immediately took interest in the incident as a sort of case study of how people would behave in the face of a real pandemic. In 2007, epidemiologist Dr. Eric Lofgren and Dr. Nina Pfefferman published a paper studying how this virtual pandemic could be used to improve real-world pandemic preparedness. In an area of study that relies mostly on complex algorithms to predict human behavior, Corrupted Blood offered a real-world-ish case study. The behavior prediction models that they had just weren't robust enough to simulate the complexities of decision-making. Take, for example, the relative lack of adoption of Blizzard's suggested self-quarantine. To quote the paper, "The failure of the quarantine measure could not have been accurately predicted by numerical methods alone, since it was driven by human decisions and behavioral choices." Dr. Pfefferman gave this awesome talk at GDC 2011 about how exactly Corrupted Blood contributed to pandemic response research, and it comes off somewhat prophetic in retrospect.
We saw some courage, we saw some compliance with the imposed quarantine, we saw fear, we saw some suspicion of the quarantine and of Blizzard's motives in doing all of this. We saw some public concern. The bulletin boards were going mad. There was everything from the equivalence of, like, aliens have landed conspiracy theories to, oh, it's a glitch, though we said it tomorrow, everyone calm down and just have fun. And there was everything in between. There were looters, there were people maliciously running in and infecting guilds. Actually, even the background perspective of the people in charge scrambling was actually a really good analogy for real-world events.
Sounds familiar, right? She goes on to discuss behavioral quirks she observed while researching Corrupted Blood that epidemiologists had previously overlooked in their predictions. Take, for example, people entering high-exposure areas just out of curiosity. Now, you may be thinking, okay, Maybe people would behave like that in a video game, but there's no way anyone would actually do that in real life, which is fair. A video game will never be a perfect simulation of reality, but this actually does have analogs in the real world. Think journalists, putting themselves at risk for the good of the story. The corrupted blood incident wasn't just a glitch. It was a moment in time. It was surreal, confusing, exciting, and terrifying all at the same time. It brought the community together in a way that couldn't have been achieved if this was planned. Although Hakar and his disease are, canonically, long since vanquished, his influence still lives on in the minds of people across the world, from gamers to epidemiological researchers. Now, this wasn't the end of plague in the WoW community. A few years later, almost certainly inspired by corrupted blood, Blizzard released an expansion that contained another disease. This time, an intentional one. In an event known only as the Great Zombie Plague of '08, players once again found themselves living through an apocalyptic plague. But from an epidemiological perspective, it just wasn't the same.
We needed the fact that it was an accident. The Wrath of the Lich King expansion later didn't really help, because that was a planned event and everyone knew the effects were temporary and everyone knew that whatever they were experiencing was meant for this to happen. Corrupted blood, by the fact that it wasn't meant to be there, really gave us some great insight.
So the data collected from a virtual outbreak is really only useful to epidemiologists if the players don't know what's going on. So Dr. Pfefferman wants to work with developers to design new diseases and surprise drop them into games in order to study the community's response. I could see something like that conceivably coming to a game like Fortnite, whose universe already features these massive community-wide events. In a game where alien visitations and asteroid strikes are perfectly common, a superbug could fit right in. Although, for the moment, it might be a little too soon. What's up? It's me from the future, editing the video you just watched. Listen, this is a brand new channel. I would really appreciate it if you would hit the like button, subscribe, do all the things, comment. A ton of cool stuff planned here. This is just the beginning, so stick around and follow me on TikTok. That's @TheWallJump. Oh yeah, and happy Halloween.